You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rasnack. Last month, longtime executive director Trudy Schroeder reached the end of her tenure at the helm of the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. Tomorrow, a very special event takes place ahead of the Concerto for Two Cellos. A tribute for Trudy honors her 13 years of leadership and legacy. Joining me now is Trudy Schroeder. Welcome back to Winnipeg's Classic 107, Trudy. Great to see you.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Well, it's been about just under a month now since your tenure at the WSO ended on May 31st. How are you feeling about things?
I am feeling very good. You know, it's been shockingly busy. Just a whole series of things. You know, the way things happen, sometimes you think, oh, I'm going to have all this free time, and the weeks just fill up with all kinds of things. You kind of think, okay, how did that happen? But there you go. Not quite as leisurely as I had anticipated for the first month of not being in the regular full-time workplace. But, you know, interesting things coming up, and actually preparing for the concert on the 29th as well, of course. So that's kept me involved in certain kinds of ways as well.
You know what? Somehow I'm not surprised to hear that you've been keeping very, very busy. But I do imagine you've taken at least a moment or two, you know, as happens when an important chapter in our lives comes to a close. Have you had a chance to reflect or to look back at all? Like what comes to mind when you think back on your time at the WSO?
Well, I just have a huge satisfaction actually with the work that we've done, with the way we've engaged with the community over that time, with I think the first, and also, I mean, in the most sort of global kind of way, I guess. I'm really happy with the way we were able to build stability within the organization. I mean, finally, that is the role of the executive director, you know, to provide the foundation on which the art can flourish. And it's a role that I take very seriously. And I've been doing a lot of studying about, you know, the importance of financial stability within arts organizations in order to facilitate the best possible art, you know, in benefit of the community and in benefit of the mission of the organization. And so to see that happen and to work on that happening in an organization like the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, which had had such a huge, long period of massive turmoil before I got there. So for example, the first week that I walked into the office, my assistant said to me, well, welcome here. You know, I'm Lori, I'm your assistant. I've been here for 8 years, and you're my 14th executive director.
14th in 8
years? 14th in 8 years. So the thing is, and it's easy to forget, you know, that huge period of instability that the symphony had. It came very close to closing down, just because the financial burden and the accumulated debt became such a big part of the financial picture that it was a crisis zone. It really was a crisis zone. And so for me, the team and the board and working together with the artistic, you know, programming as well, to actually year by year be able to build increasing stability and build partnerships in the community that people could trust and that people could have win-win relationships with. All of those things, I think, are, you know, the fruits of a certain kind of stability within the senior management and the senior management team. I mean, the year before I got there, the entire senior management team had resigned in process. So marketing, development, you know, the whole team had quit because it was just such chaos and so horribly stressful to work in an organization that was just in constant chaos.
Well, stability you most certainly offered at the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. And I mean, there were so many accomplishments under your leadership that I can't possibly list them all, but I can fire off a few. And I mean, you mentioned the stability financially and an operating surplus in all but 1 year in your 13 years. And that 1 year happened to be a global pandemic. There was an increased overall revenue, increased ticket sales, and then the creation of new series and programs like Dinner in a Symphony, the WSO movie series, which has been so incredibly successful, the incredible opening night galas with renowned talent like Itzhak Perlman and Emmanuel Ax and Renee Fleming. And then, like you say, the community partnership and engagement, Systema Winnipeg, and then you hired a new music director, and then tours to the National Arts Center and Carnegie Hall in New York. Did I miss anything in there, Trudy? Is there anything else that you know?
Yes, Systema Winnipeg.
Yeah, and tell us more about, you know, why it was important to build a program like Systema that is so inspiring for young individuals, and not just in inspiring them to create music, but also social change as well.
Well, I think organizations like the symphony we have a core mission, and that is the work of, well, to program, produce, and present and perform the masterworks of symphonic music, right? So those are the old masterworks and the new masterworks. But we also have a role in the community, and in the community to address the issues of the community, whether they are urban renewal, so it's sort of increasing engagement between our customers and the restaurants in the neighborhood, in the other arts organizations in the neighborhood. We also can have a role when it comes to urban renewal, when it comes to structures, sort of like the Centennial Center, as well as perhaps Pantages Theater, but also what are the social issues in our community that an arts organization can address. And so our thought was, well, I guess the thing that inspired it, first of all, is I went for a meeting with the Manitoba Métis Federation. And while we were there, we talked about different ways that the symphony might be able to work with that community. And this was long before everybody was talking about, about diversity and engagement. I mean, we knew that, Winnipeg being the city that it is, with the Indigenous population that's here, no community-based organization can afford to ignore that. I mean, you can't afford it on on an ethical basis. You can't afford it on a community basis, and you can't afford it on a financial basis. You cannot ignore the growth of a population that is very significant for this community, and where there are significant issues to help address, to help to sort of engage the community. So when we talked to them in the middle of the meeting, one of the people in the meeting looked at me and said, boy, it sure would be nice to see some of our, Métis people playing in the orchestra. And, I stopped and I thought about, okay, what would that take? And the dilemma is that in preparing people for membership in a symphony orchestra, it isn't let's start violin lessons last year and you're going to be playing in the orchestra next year. That doesn't happen. For people to reach that level, you are starting your violin lessons when you're 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and you're working steadily at that in a very incremental way until you're in your mid-20s and you have at least a university degree and a master's degree and all kinds of specialized training. Well, how could we even start that process, for communities where perhaps, individual music lessons were not in the cards? So we started looking around for things that we could do, and Systema came up as a model for something. And it's based on the Venezuelan model, but it is very much adapted to Winnipeg, which is, the approach is, let us use the discipline, the incremental stepping stones of learning classical music to actually help bring social change to individuals and to communities. And boy, it has been 10 years now, and what a wonderful process.
And that's exactly what I wanted to say is, we've seen Systema grow, and again, leaving it in such a great place, especially in the hands now of music director Naomi Wu, seeing the engagement and watching the online recitals, as we've all been watching things online this year. It's just been so inspiring to see the students and the music that they've been making. Now, we did kind of run down the list of accomplishments. That being said, I am a little bit curious if you could speak more to the idea that are there any boxes that sort of remain unchecked, any to-do list items that didn't quite get crossed off?
Well, there are many, right? In complex organizations, there are, the things to do, end up being huge, but certainly we do, have an issue on the facilities side. I spoke about it. I encouraged community discussion. I
remember you being at Classic 107. Yeah, I remember you being at Classic 107 talking about the home of the WSO.
Exactly, and that has not been resolved. There have been some investments in the Centennial Center. There still is the dream of a refurbishment of Pantages Theater. I do, in a kind of a wild kind of way, I do look at the Hudson Bay, the sort of the community plate of the Hudson Bay building, and think about, wouldn't that be an amazing space to actually turn into a concert hall? I mean, just in terms of location, just in terms of, you know, the proximity to the Winnipeg Art Gallery, the parking lot that's right there, this space that is iconic, and just about the right footprint to sort of put a dedicated concert hall right in the middle of that. I mean, it's not just a one solution thing. The right kinds of space in which an orchestra can make music is really important. And right now we don't have that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's all about, like I said, finding that home and also finding the sound for the WSO, right? Because
exactly, finding the sound. I mean, because the hall is a part of the instrument, right? When you think about it, all of those instruments together playing in a certain space is what makes the sound that an orchestra has. And so when you go and hear great orchestras in their halls, that the orchestras in their halls it's a marriage, right? It's a marriage of space and sound and players.
It most certainly is. But with that being said, you know, so many accomplishments that you can hang your hat on. Tomorrow night, as I mentioned, a tribute for Trudy airs 30 minutes before the concert. It's a special thank you from the WSO and the broader community. I'm sure that there are countless individuals who would like the opportunity to say thank you for all that you have done. But I'm curious, is there anything that you would like to say to them?
Well, I've thought about that. I've thought about that a lot. And actually, I should say one of the ways that people have been saying thank you, and I'm actually so amazed and thrilled, I have to say, is the organization set up this endowment fund, a Trudy Schroeder endowment fund. And at the time, I thought, oh well, I mean, you know, who's going to give money to an endowment fund named after an executive director? I mean, the executive director role is really, it is so crucial to a healthy organization, but it is not the marquee role, right? We don't have our pictures on the front of the season guide. We're not up there sort of waving our arms around and making magic happen. And yes, you know, I encourage people to buy, you know, imperial cookies or make donations or sort of adopt a musician, but that's not exactly what people think. Wow, you know, that's the executive director. But at the same time, you do make, I guess, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of relationships, warm relationships with people who support the orchestra, who are pleased to see the orchestra being more stable, being able to produce music, being able to do new things. And I have been just, you know, incredibly moved to see. And that's one of the things that kept me so busy. I've been writing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thank you cards. I mean, to people who've made, because I promised, I said, you know, people make a donation to this Trudy Schroeder Endowment Fund, I will write you a personalized a thank you letter. And little did I know what I was in for. I mean, at the lake here, I was sitting at the cottage every night writing, you know, 50 of these thank you cards. But what a delightful task. You know, because with each name that came up, I would think about the person and my encounters with that person over the years and how, you know, their love of music and my love of music. And you know, maybe that's what people respond to. I mean, in this kind of a role, they could tell that my joy in the music, my joy in the organization, my joy in the community, my joy in their love of music was absolutely genuine. And you know, you can't fake that for sure. I mean, it's not just a job. It's one of those things that has to be sort of, you know, it has to be your lifetime work. You pour yourself into these kinds of roles in a way that you know, you wouldn't if you're just sort of watching the clock. And I mean, if you're a clock watcher, or I mean, if you're not a workaholic, this is not the job for you.
Well, I
so
think
that's been really gratifying, you know, how much support there's been there. And you know, and this whole year has made me really so aware that the role of an orchestra in a community, it really is the role of an orchestra in a community, and that the audience is such an important part. I mean, the heartbreak of a year of you know, the joy of actually being able to keep our orchestra together, but the sorrow of not having our audience members in engagement with the music at each of the concerts was huge. It just for me cemented the realization that an orchestra and its audience are very, very connected, and they're very essential to each other, and the dynamic between the two, the support, the love, the care for the individual musicians, the knowing of the musicians by the audience members, the fact that many of our audience members are or have been students of the people who play in the orchestra, or their children were students of, or they know them personally, or they attend the same church, or their children attend the same school. All of this is an essential part of that kind of story of an orchestra in its community. And our community has been so richly supportive of this orchestra, even this year. I mean, I have to think the major miracle of this year for me is that despite all the challenges, I mean, our supporters and donors have continued to give, in fact, if anything, a little more generously. We couldn't do the usual car raffles and things that we did, but our audience members absolutely stepped up, and they made donations and sent notes and contacted me and shared their concerns and their worries, and continued to give money.
Well, and as you say, I mean, in terms of giving to the Trudy Schroeder Endowment Fund, named in your honor, it just speaks to the impact you've had on the community here, to the musicians, to the arts lovers and music lovers in the city. And so, Trudy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me at Classic 107 here today, and not as a classical music radio host and the official station partner of the WSO, but as a Winnipegger and a symphony goer. You've just been such an integral part to the arts and culture community here in the city, bettering it and growing it and promoting it. So thank you so much for all that you've done.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to work with you, to work with your station. And I was so thrilled when Classic 107, came to our community. What a wonderful addition. And thank you as well for the role that you play. We all kind of fit together to make a better community. So, I mean, it takes so many people, right?
Well,
to
that's
make
just
it all work.
right?
Yeah. So I'm not done yet. I mean, I'm not sure yet exactly, what the next roles are going to be, but I will definitely be engaged in all kinds of things. So
can't wait to have you back on to hear more. Trudy, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.